There's now over 1 trillion megabytes of new digital content created every day. And the average American spends 7 hours a day viewing digital content. Quick show of hands, how many people in this room have looked at social media today, or a meme, or a blog, or a video that resonated with them? I've seen a lot of you guys on your cell phones looking at things. I know that's not all work, okay? So content is everywhere. So the other question I want to ask you is, how do you reward that content? You see all this great stuff. How do you reward it? Well, in many cases, you can't. iResonate has a solution for this. Sorry, I've been running backwards. That's what happens when you put it in your left hand, right? My name is Zeke Fairbank. I'm CEO of iResonate, and I'm delighted to be here today to present our solution and our company to you. Our solution we call ClickTip. ClickTip enables donors on a website to make a donation for the content that they're viewing. It's an impulse donation. The ClickTip button itself lends itself to being designed for multiple currencies, and click and tip are the same in many languages. The words click and tip. Also, we've applied for trademark registration. This is an example of ClickTip on a blog site. As you can see, the button itself is not invasive. So this is our business model. Our business model is fairly simple. We partner with websites, or I should say web hosts that host the websites. The web host puts the ClickTip button on their site, and they can put it in multiple locations. They can also have a separate ClickTip button for each of their content providers. We're the only ones that do this. As a viewer sees the content, they want to make a donation, they can click on the ClickTip button. That immediately puts them into a donation screen. It's an impulse donation. It's immediate. They then quickly fill out a form. It takes them 2 seconds to put in their personal data, their credit card, and they push send. It goes to Stripe. It's processed by Stripe, and they get an immediate thank you confirming their donation. When it comes to us, iResonate takes 5% of the transaction fee. The balance gets split between the content provider and the web host. This is our market. It's wide open. Initially, we're going to focus on blogs. Our go-to market strategy is we're going to grow our market organically. We want to grow our sales funnel organically using social media and digital advertising to basically develop an awareness and promote our brands. The database that we have that we're building with web hosts, content providers, and the donors is going to add value in the future. Our market validation, we wanted to see two things. We wanted to see number one, would people actually tip for what is essentially free content? And the other thing we wanted to see was, would websites or web hosts actually put our ClickTip button on their site? So we went out and we ran a survey. And with 2,000 consumers on our survey, 43% came back and said yes, that if they see resonating content or content that added value to them in one way or another, they would tip for it. The average tip was $1 to $5. Asking the question of the blog sites, we basically pulled 350 content blog publishers. Those blog publishers came back and they said, yes, we'd be very interested in putting ClickTip on our site. 58%. 12% said we already have something. Quite often that is a link rather than a button. Some have a Donate Now button. Ours is a branded button. And we asked, well, who would be interested in testing our blog, being a beta test for us? 45% came back and said, we would be very interested in doing that. Looking at our comparative market value, there are some older companies that have been around, like Ko-fi, Buy Me a Coffee, and Patreon. I think you're all familiar with Patreon. Those tend to be membership sites, subscription, fee-based, and what happens is when people make a tip, they go from their site to another site to this community site to be able to make that donation. It's very inefficient. The other way to go is an immediate tip. If you look at Tumblr, Tumblr has got its own tip button. They're probably the largest microblog site in the world. Competition. We really break competition out in two different ways. We look at aggregated versus non-aggregated. Aggregated would be your big companies. So Tumblr would be an example of an aggregated website. So they have a number of microblogs that are underneath them. The Facebook, in a way, is an aggregator because they have all the postings that go underneath them. Many of the blog sites fall into the non-aggregated category, and that's the market we're trying to go after. We're not going to compete with the big boys. We're going to actually look for market share on the smaller companies. Then we also look at the donation. Is it a redirect donation? In other words, when people make a donation, are they then redirected off the site that they're looking at to another site, or is it a direct or an impulse donation? And the advantage of our ClickTip button is it's a direct and impulse donation, and we have a huge universe of websites that we can work with that are non-aggregated. So competitive advantages. These are some of the competitive advantages that we have here. The impulse donation to thank content providers. Basically what we want to do is we want to add another monetization stream to the web hosts. Right now, what they have is a monetization that includes affiliate marketing, sponsorship, advertising, and product sales. Those are the big four for them. Their major pain points, though, all add together to what we call time suck. The amount of time that they spend looking for the right partners to be able to do this marketing or advertising, the negotiating the contracts, the maintaining the contracts, to having them fit right into their space nicely, and then having to start the whole process over again when the contract ends up is very, very time consuming for them. The Donate Now button is, you set it on your website, you can add more buttons very easily, it takes about 2 minutes, and after that, revenue rolls into you. Looking at our financials, number one, we expect to be revenue positive within 2 years. Number two, the database that we're developing, again with web hosts, web hosts, content providers, and donors, is going to have significant upsell and data sell opportunities going forward, and is also going to add a real benefit to future suitors. The funding gap that we're looking at, we've got about a $200,000 funding gap. Our major expenses are labor. Our labor represents 89% of our first year cost and 82% of our second year cost. We're seeking an investment of $350,000. This will cover the funding gap in year 1 and 2 and give us a bit of a cushion so we don't have to keep going back and hustling for money. We want to focus on developing our business and driving the business. Any excess funds are going to be used to drive, to accelerate growth in the company, and our exit strategy is to look for an acquisition in year 5. We have first-class founders. Our CTO is in Silicon Valley, and he's been involved with 2 different startups, and we have a marketing brand manager in New York City. We also have a first-class team of advisors with a history of startups, exits, successful startups, exits, and operations and finance. So in conclusion, I want to leave you with 2 things. Number 1, there was a TED Talk in 2015 that was given by the founder of Idea Labs, and he was looking at what's the biggest predictor of success for startups, and the answer was it was timing. Well, with all the big guys, the aggregators coming into the market now with their own tip programs, you have Tumblr tips, etc. That shows me that the timing is there. For the unaggregated market, that's something that we can definitely gain market share on. The second thing is that as I look around the room, I can only think that within the next day you're going to go home, you're going to look at some content, you're going to read something, you're going to see something that makes you think, you're going to see something that makes you laugh, you're going to think about something that makes you cry, and the question is, you're going to ask yourself, why can't I reward this? We're iResonate. Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, sir.
I always have a question. You had mentioned that the user needs to put in credit card information, on their code, etc. Do they have to do that every time, or do you save the information? How does that work?
Well, we don't save information on our system. Everything goes up to Stripe. But if anytime you've used your cell phone today or even computer, Google saves a lot of that information, so it's actually going to flow in. We do have a registry for donors, so the donor can register, and when they do that, all their name and all that will flow in automatically as well. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Where is the program in development now? Is it ready to beta?
We're rolling into a beta. So we have the website up and running. The database is online. We've got things set up with Stripe. We're hosting on AWS, basically I've already got people that are interested in beta testing. In fact, I approached a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he has 5 influential blog sites. He's in the boating industry, and I was surprised. I didn't know he ran five different blogs, but he runs 5 blogs. And he came back to me and he said, we have so many readers that ask us, how can they make a tip? Well, we've got that solution for them. There are donate now buttons that you can use. We're branded. We go out there. We hold hands. And the advantage is that we help with the placement. A lot of what we've seen out there is placed very, very poorly. And we're going to fix that. We're going to help people, because the more that they can generate, the more we generate as well. So it becomes a win-win for everyone. The other thing is that the donors, when a donor is donating, you've got a viewer that says, I really like this. I want to thank these guys. I want to do something to thank them. This gives them that direct connection to be able to thank the content providers and the web hosts for actually putting that content out there. More questions? No? None? Okay. Well, thank you very much.